Hey guys, it's Brant, and I've got Steven here with me.
Hello.
And today we're going to be doing something not Kiss related, believe it or not.
Whoa.
I know, right? Woo.
Bet you're ready for that.
I bet you are ready for that. I heard somebody told me the other day, when are you going to make something that ain't having to do with Kiss? And
he said never.
And I said never. You know, we can always talk about Kiss. But no, this is an idea that Steven had, and we're going to be doing some different videos. This is the video we're going to be doing today. Is we're going to be talking about our top 7 favorite bands.
Yes.
And I'll probably get ridiculed for a lot of my favorite bands. But
I'm sure I will.
But you know what? This is our favorite bands. And what I'd really like to see at the end of this is I would like to see comments of you guys' favorite bands. Pick 7. And, you know, and if one of us talks about a band that you like, I'd like to see you guys agree with us. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get to it. And we're going to start with Steven. We'll let you go first. Start with your 7th band. Who is it? And a little bit of why they're your 7th band.
All right. So my 7th favorite band, a lot of my bands are going to be modern bands. I'm into a lot of progressive metal, progressive rock, instrumental, rock music. This is not one of those bands. My 7th favorite band is a band called Periphery.
Sometimes there's a crack in the world that I can peer through to see it for what it really.
Never heard of them.
You're probably going to say that about a lot of my bands. Look them up.
I will.
My favorite song by them currently is 22 Faces. Misha Mansour, their guitar player and pretty much the founder of their band, is a fantastic guitar player. And funnily enough, he actually started out on drums and played drums for a long time. So
cool.
He plays drums on most of the recorded tracks. He doesn't live, of course, because he's busy doing it. There is 2 other guitar players in the band, so there's 3 guitarists total. Misha's has a signature Jackson guitar. I think it's an 8-string.
Wow.
But Periphery, they are probably one of my favorite bands currently. It changes a lot for me. And if you were into metal music, especially heavy, there's not a lot of screaming going on there. So if you're not a person who likes the Cookie Monster growls, you might find Periphery one of the bands that you could listen to.
Okay.
Okay, for you, number 7.
All right. My number 7 band. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
My number 7 band, and I'm ready for the the harassing.
Is it?
But my number 7 band.
Hold on. I want to guess. Jackson Browne.
No, I didn't do artists. I did bands.
You did bands.
I did bands.
Okay.
Jackson Browne is one of my favorite artists. But if we do artists, if we included him in there, I don't know where exactly he'd be.
Would he be in your 10, you think?
Oh, yes. He'd be in my top 5. He'd
really?
probably knock one of these bands out of the 7.
Wow.
He'd be in my top 5 as far as musical artist goes.
All right.
Solo artist.
Right.
And maybe that's a list we can do sometime. But
anyway,
as far as a band, my number 7 favorite band is Creed.
One step on the road and you walk all over me.
I have a lot of memories about that band.
Creed. And here's why. Creed does not really have a song that I don't like. There are some songs that I like better than others. And for all you people out there who like to give Creed a hard time, Scott Stapp and, the guys a hard time, listen to their first album. Listen to their first album front to back. It is good front to back. I love the drumming. I love the guitarist. He does...
Mark Tremonti is a fantastic guitarist.
He does some of the craziest things. He's not a virtuoso, but he is a very creative and very talented riff writer. Scott Stapp, a lot of people, his voice gets on their nerves, but I like Scott Stapp's voice. I like the lyrical content that he sings about. There's a lot of songs that they have that I really like. And whenever a Creed song comes on, I turn it up, and I have a tendency to, I like their hits, but I like their deeper tracks. Ode off of the first album, and Little Sister off the first album. The first album all the way front to back is good for me. I can listen to it all the way through. I really like the album. So now my number 7 is Creed.
I gotta say, I didn't expect that from you. But now that I think about it, it kind of fits. I remember when I was young.
A very drum-heavy band.
Yes.
And that's one of the things I love. Their drummer, very drum-heavy band. Their drums are mixed right up front, and I love that. I listen to you when you hear a song. You listen to the guitars. When I hear a song, I listen to everything eventually, because I have a musical ear. I have a producer's ear, so I hear things in songs that other people don't hear. And I can listen to them all simultaneously, and I can separate them out in my mind. I can hear the main guitar track, or if they layer guitars, I can hear that guitar track that's way back in the back that's just there for ambiance, or just there to give it that little bit of extra crunch. I'm the kind of person that does crazy stuff, like I'll listen to a song all the way through just in the left headset. And then I'll listen to it all the way through just in the right headset. So I want to hear the difference between the two sides. And you hear things in one side that you don't hear in the other. And so Creed is one of those bands that does that. And
they do it right.
They do it really right. Good. So, yeah.
All right.
So who's your number 6?
So number 6 for me, which I spent quite a bit of time thinking about this, and Kiss actually takes my number 6 spot, especially after listening to Rock and Roll Over.
I don't care, not to say, oh no, you got to pay, turn your head rock bottom and you better stay.
They're slowly becoming a band that I don't find myself going a week, a couple weeks without listening to. I'm regularly now putting on Kiss songs. And they're slowly becoming a band. I've been listening to Kiss for about 3 years now, but in a very encapsulated way. I found my albums that I liked, and I stuck to them. And now I'm beginning to expand, and the more I expand, the more I find more of their music they're like, and I'm more accepting of their different types of music. There are some times that they get a little out of hand for me, but I really think that Kiss well deserves my number 6 spot for me.
Okay. My number 6 band is Foo Fighters.
Everything could ever be this way forever. If anything could ever be this good.
Foo Fighters.
Foo Fighters.
You're coming out of left field with these, man.
I tell you, Dave Grohl, to me, is, well, one, he's a drummer. So that, their drumming is, and he's not the most technical drummer either, but his drumming is phenomenal. His songwriting is amazing.
Yes, that's no doubt.
He's a phenomenal songwriter. He's a good guitarist. He recorded his first album all on his own in a week. Go back and listen to the first Foo Fighters album. And that is Dave Grohl. Everything. The bass, the drums, the guitar, the lead vocals, the background vocals. It's him in a studio in a week.
You want to know a fun fact about Dave Grohl? I watched a guitar tuition video of him one time, and since he's a drummer's player, he's a drummer's player. I listened to... You want to know a fun fact about Dave Grohl? I watched a guitar tuition video with him one time, and since he is a drummer, he has a drummer's mind, and he actually said that, your treble strings on the guitar, your thinner ones, he thinks of those as the cymbals, and your top 3 bass strings, he thinks as those as the toms and the bass pedal and the snare. And that's how he works out how he writes his riffs on guitar.
And I could definitely hear that. And Foo Fighters, the thing I like, the bands that I have a tendency to gravitate towards is, you put on a Creed song, people know it's Creed. They may not have ever heard the song before, but the words will come out of their mouth. That sounds like Creed.
Sounds like Creed.
You put a Foo Fighters song on. That sounds like Foo Fighters. So I like bands that have a distinctive sound to them and everything. And like I said, I admire Dave Grohl. I'd like to meet him someday. Dave, if you're watching, I want to meet you. If you ever see this, which, who knows. But yeah, so Foo Fighters is my 6. So how about 5 for you?
5 for me is a band that probably a lot of you have never heard of. Maybe some of you, I know you have because you showed them to me. Is my number 5 for me is Disciple. The song that I recommend you listen to them, if you're interested, is Southern Hospitality. I don't know if my dad's going to, but I expect him to maybe put short clips of some of the songs I suggest.
Yep.
Disciple is one of those bands that once I started listening to, I never stopped. I've been listening to Disciple since I was a kid, and they've always captured my attention. They get into kind of the mid-2000s where rock music really started changing, and they let that systematic change them. And I got to the point where I didn't really like their music. Southern Hospitality, which is also the name of the album that the song is on, is probably one of the last albums of the 2000s that I like, maybe besides Scars Remain, which is also a good album. You get all the way from 2005 all the way up to 2010. I'm kind of so-so on those. And then they start a Kickstarter, and for album in 2014, which they get back to their roots on that album. It's fantastic. And they actually released a new album end of last year that I haven't listened to yet because I just found out about it about a week ago, and I've been listening to Kiss music so much that I haven't had time to put it in there, but I'll probably get it in within the next couple of days. But if it's anything like the last album they kickstarted, it's going to be great.
Yeah, no, of course I have heard of Disciple. And I like the Southern Hospitality, but my favorite album by Disciple is one of their earlier albums, By God.
That is a great album too.
By God
That's my second. Yeah.
If some of you who don't know, who's never heard of Disciple's a Christian band, and that's why I think Disciple never broke it big, because they had that Christian label. They don't sound like many Christian bands you've heard, but now you get into some of their earlier content, like By God. And then they have an album before that called This Might Sting a Little. They're very heavy Christian, even having scriptures in songs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's still just kick your butt songwriting, and they're just a phenomenal, talented group. They didn't make my top 7, but they're just phenomenal, talented group.
They are, and for a while they were a 3-piece band.
Right.
But eventually they moved on, and they've had a lot of
personnel changes over the years.
Yeah, and I don't even. I think the only person at this point who's the original is the lead guitar player and the lead singer.
Right.
But his voice is also very, very distinct.
Very distinctive voice. That's another one in bands. If you hear them, you know who they are.
Yeah, but that's my number 5, Disciple.
All right. Now, for my number 5, we're going to start getting back to my roots here a little bit. So my number 5 band is Motley Crue.
Out go the lights, in goes my knife. Pull out a fight. The Superman bastard, Dad, get on your knees. Please let me please. The king of sleaze.
I was expecting, and before you said I'm going to get back to roots, I expected Pearl Jam.
No, Motley Crue. I heard Motley Crue for the very first time when I was 14 years old. Their album came out in 1983, Shout at the Devil. And of course I was a Kiss fan, and Motley Crue seemed like the 1983 version of Kiss. During this time, we'll get to the 1980s in Kiss, and Kiss was going this way in the early 1980s. And a lot of fans was jumping ship on Kiss and starting to listen to bands like Rat, Motley Crue, Quiet Riot, Twisted Sister, and bands like that. Motley Crue came out with Shout at the Devil, and it was not like anything I'd ever heard before. Shout at the Devil is one of those albums. It's a masterpiece. I'm going to review it one day. I may review Motley Crue's catalog someday when we get done with Kiss. But Shout at the Devil is a masterpiece from front to back. It's amazing. Motley Crue is one of those bands that their sound, they weren't afraid to experiment. You know, they went from the darkness and satanic. I mean, their album has a pentagram on the front of it, for God's sakes. And then they went to Theater of Pain with Smoking in the Boys' Room, and and then they went on to they had Girls, 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 Dr. Feelgood. I mean, they're one of my bands that they have very few songs, and I judge my favorite bands by how many songs do they have that I skip, based out of their catalog, or do they have one album that is one of my desert island albums that I would not want to be without. And we'll do a desert island top 10 or something sometime, albums. We'll do some. That's another thing we can do. But Mick Mars, phenomenal guitarist. Tommy Lee, cannot tell you how many people that Tommy Lee inspired as far as drumming goes. Just phenomenal band, So my number 5, Motley Crue.
All right.
So we're going to move on to number 4.
Okay, so number 4. Unless you spend a lot of time on YouTube, and specifically the guitar end of YouTube, you will probably have never heard of this band, and that's okay. My 4th favorite band is Tosco. They're from the UK. They're a completely instrumental band, no vocal. It's a 3-piece, Rabir Masad, Dave Hollingworth, and Ben Meinall. 3 extremely gifted, talented musicians. If you're going to go and listen to, I won't even give you one song. Their Ode to the Offer live album is one of the best instrumental albums ever, in my opinion. And I respect them so much. Rabir Masad, the guitar player for that band, is who I aspire to be one day in my guitar playing, because he's just great. If you are someone who doesn't like ambient music, you won't like their music. I like ambient music, but it's ambient in an interesting way. One of the songs on the album is 10 minutes, and like I said, no vocals. I think that's one thing that my dad, he likes vocal music. Mm-hmm. And I showed him a Tosca song one time. He's like, when are they going to start singing? I'm like, oh, they don't. And he's like, how long is this song? I'm like, it's like 6 minutes.
Give me a singer.
Yeah, and so, but they make it, I believe that they make it interesting enough to where I don't need that.
Yeah, they're a very good band. Yeah, I enjoyed it,
Yeah, and coming from someone who listens to the music a lot anyway, and kind of vocals second, unless it's a song that I really like vocals on, it just works for me. I love them, and they're currently working on their second album. It's supposed to release around summer this year, and I am stoked. I cannot wait for it. On to yours.
Okay, so my number 4 is Guns N' Roses.
That doesn't surprise me, actually.
Guns N' Roses, I discovered Guns N' Roses, it was around 87. I was around 17, 18 years old. And I remember hearing Guns N' Roses. I remember hearing Welcome to the Jungle, seeing it on MTV, and hearing it on the radio. And I remember liking Guns N' Roses relatively early, and before people I was going to school with. I think I was a senior in high school. Before they were still like, Guns N' who? Who's that? Guns N' Roses. What kind of name is that? But then everybody started getting a taste of this album called Appetite for Destruction. And Axl and Slash and Izzy and Duff and Steven. And Appetite for Destruction is...
It changed the course of rock music.
It changed music. It did for hard rock, what Nirvana did for grunge. I mean, you cannot... I don't care if you like Guns N' Roses or not. you cannot deny the album Appetite for Destruction.
Yeah, it has an influence almost unreached, probably by any other album ever.
Right. And I love every song on the album. My least favorite song on the album is probably Sweet Child of Mine. I probably will review this album someday, and it's got songs that I consider perfect on it. The recording is perfect. The recording is good. I wish the drums would have been recorded a little differently, engineered a little differently. But the guitars, the layers of the guitars, and the coolest thing I love is you got two phenomenal guitarists, Izzy and Slash, two totally different styles. They use different effects. They play different types of guitars. And when they recorded it, they panned Izzy hard left, Slash hard right, playing rhythm. And you listen to the songs in stereo, listening just to one side and then listening to the other, you hear these different parts that just, when you listen to it together, it just melts together. And like I said, it's like peanut butter and chocolate. I mean, it is just, they play off each other so well. When Izzy left the band, Guns N' Roses' sound was never the same. I like Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. I think they're phenomenal albums. They're masterpieces in their own right. Axl is an awesome songwriter. He's an amazing vocalist. And, he's an amazing pianist. I mean, he's a good musician. He has a songwriting level that is up there at the genius point as far as I'm concerned. And the things he can do with his voice. Like I said, that's what puts them at my number 4. And like I said, it comes down to the songs and the album. And Appetite for Destruction is a masterpiece. So it was in Rolling Stone's top 100 best rock albums of all time. So and it is definitely in my top 10 Desert Island albums. So that's my number 4.
All right, let's go on to number 3.
So we can go on to number 3 for you.
Number 3, Alice in Chains.
Good answer.
Good answer.
Good answer.
Don't know if there's anything I can say other than how can one man have such a thick guitar tone? And how can one vocalist have such an impact on so many people? And how can you make a band that's so far out of left field,
that writes in such weird times and writes such weird songs, and breaks
and
all the rules,
and such weird harmonies, and still get overlooked?
And you want to talk about layers of
and
guitars,
layers,
and still pulls it off live. Check out some of their live videos.
No. I'll tell you, if you want to hear what that man, Jared Cantrell, if you guys don't know who we're talking about, go look at his demo for his signature Friedman amp, the Double J 100. That is a dry tone from his amp, and it's there. The thickness is there for days, and it's just his guitar into his signature amp, and you're just like, I might as well just be listening to Alice in Chains album. There's not enough good things I can say about Alice in Chains. I absolutely love their music. I would take any number of their albums to Desert Island with me. My song suggestions for them, if you're talking, pre the death of Lane Staley, R.I.P., RIP, Nutshell is my favorite song. There's many others that are really close, but that was the first song that I heard by Alice in Chains, and I'm like, I'm going to commit myself to learning how to play this all the way through. And I did. And if you want to talk about post Lane Staley's death, I cannot remember their new vocalist names, but he's also
phenomenal.
He's also very talented. He also he plays rhythm guitar, and he's also really good. He plays on 2 of the albums, Black Gives Way to Blue and Devil Put Dinosaurs Here. My recommendation for that would be Last of My Kind. Great song. And he's the one, him and Jerry kind of swap vocals a lot, especially on Devil Put Dinosaurs here. Jerry kind of takes the forefront on vocals. But Last of My Kind is one of the ones where he takes the vocals. And my favorite thing is he's not trying to be lame. He's being himself.
Right.
And it still sounds like Alice in Chains, and it's still a great song.
Right.
So, number 3 for me, Alice in Chains, all day.
All right. So we're going to talk about my number 3, and my number 3 favorite band, Alice in Chains.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Alice in Chains.
I said, don't continue yourselves and just to give it all the place. Yeah. Under the hill.
Just I'm not going to go over what you said over too much, but I remember the first time I heard Man in the Box. Alice in Chains is my favorite of the Seattle. I wouldn't even call. They got looped into that. They got basically just piled in with Soundgarden and Alice in Chains or Red Nirvana and all the other Seattle bands. I don't consider Alice in Chains Seattle. I consider Alice in Chains a metal band. Alice in Chains to me is a metal band. The reason why they got lumped into where they did is because nobody knew what the hell to do with them. They had a sound and song structure that had no structure. They had a sound that the harmonies and the trading off of the vocals and the layering of the guitars and the drumming. Sean Kinney, the drumming. He was a big influence on me as well. Alice in Chains is just phenomenal. I remember heard Man in the Box. I immediately went out and bought their first album, Facelift. Phenomenal. Another album, front to back.
Awesome.
A bad song on it.
Yeah. And another thing, I forgot to kind of mention this. Oh, crap. I lost it.
Well, while he's thinking, I'm going to go on about... And then they... what I liked that they did on the first album, rocked, then did an acoustic EP, then came out with Dirt. And Dirt was what took them to that next level. And that's where they had... really started to develop that sound. And then they had the... What was it? Was it Sap, the first acoustic album, or Jar of Flies?
I think Jar of Flies was.
Jar of Flies was, and then Sap or whatever. But and then there was Three-Legged Dog, which all three of those albums, those three full-length studio albums, masterpieces. I mean, they're just masterpieces all the way through. The album and the content did kind of start suffering as Lane got further and further into his addiction. If I had to choose between the three albums, between Facelift, Dirt, and Three-Legged Dog, I would have to take... God, it'd be hard. I'd have to take Facelift, but one of my favorite all-time Alice in Chains songs is Shame in You, which is on Three-Legged Dog. Yep. And I would hate to live without that song. So it's... that's how I know that they're my number 3 band, because there's not a thing that I can think about that I would really want to do without having by them.
Yeah, I'd have a hard time, even including the albums after in the 2000s. I would have a hard time even with those, because I like them all.
Yeah,
I like them all.
Yes, I like the newer materials. Stone is one of my favorites.
Stone is a great
Stone's
song.
a great song. I mean, I like that they respectfully, they caught a lot of flack when they didn't stop, and when they took back up, and to me they didn't replace Lane Staley. You cannot replace Lane Staley. They didn't try to replace Lane Staley. They just tried to keep continuing on.
Yeah, and you can't find a lot of footage of them performing previous Kiss songs. What am I saying? You can't find a lot of footage of them performing previous Alice in Chains songs live with their new lineup. A lot of it is, a lot of their new content. Now, you can find every now and again. I think I even saw like a Good Morning show where they were featured on it, and they were playing. I think it was like Man in the Box or something. Mm-hmm. But it's really hard to find them with their current lineup performing songs with Lane, because I read an interview with Jerry that the lead singer currently now just feels uncomfortable with that.
All right, so that leaves us at number 2 for you. Who's your number 2 band?
So number 2 band is another pretty heavy band. Their genre, there's all kinds of subgenres of metal, and there's memes of how many genres of metal that there are now. But they're what is considered melodic metalcore. And that band is Parkway Drive.
My key, my lock, little bones collide till the light falls like candles from a light.
I've been listening to this band for a long time. You may have heard me mention them. I started listening to them back in probably 9th grade when I think a friend was kind of just jokingly showing them to me. But I picked up their first album and I listened to it, and ever since then I've gotten every single album from them. I don't know a whole lot about the band members, though, to be honest. I think that's one of my shortcomings, is I don't really care so much about the people writing the music. I just kind of care about the music. So that being said, I don't know a whole lot about the members, but their content is great to me. It's very aggressive, very guitar forward, but not in a way that it's just like noise. There's a lot of composure and conviction that's put into the way that they write most of their songs. Some of them are really thrashy, and those are not really the songs I take as much with. But this is a band, or at least they have a song that I consider to be a absolute perfect song, in my opinion. It's a flawless song. Everything about the song is right. It hits it in all the right places. And that song is A Deathless Song. If you are into any kind of screamy metal music, do yourself a favor. Go listen to that song. It's perfect, in my opinion. But that is my number 2 Parkway Drive.
Okay. All right. My number 2 favorite band of all time is Kiss.
I got to get up. Everybody's gonna move their feet. Get down. Everybody's gonna leave their seat. You gotta lose your mind in Detroit, Rock City.
Kiss is not my number 1 favorite band. Even though I have a channel dedicated to them, they're not my number 1 favorite band. But I don't know what I could say about Kiss that I've not said before. Kiss has had a long, very tumultuous history. They've had several, personnel changes, but they've released over 30 albums, well over 300 songs, and I don't like every Kiss song. There's some songs out there I wish they never wrote. I'm just going to say that, and we'll get to them whenever I do my reviews. But the good with Kiss definitely outweighs the bad. And Kiss is a part of me. I've known Kiss since I was 7. I got introduced to Kiss after Elvis died. I was a big Elvis fan when I was a kid.
Really?
I was a big Elvis fan. I was a big Elvis fan when I was a kid. And I remember crying when Elvis died. Whenever I found out that he had died, I remember crying. And the way that I found out about Kiss was because of Elvis dying. Because my mom or my grandmother, I can't remember which one, they took me down to an Eckerd's drugstore. And back during that time, they had these LP. They put everything on LP back then. They put comedians on LP, and they put comic books on LP, and they'd have these records, because records was the big thing back in the 70s, and they would look like this. They would look like an album, and you'd open it up and there'd be a comic book in there, and you'd put the album on the record player, and you would play it, and it would go along, and it was basically the comic book with sound effects, and you read along. The dialogue was what they were saying in the comic, and you just kind of followed along with it. Well, I think it was Destroyer that my grandma saw, and my grandma and my mother, and she thought it was one of those comic things. So she thought, you're crying. You know, you're upset because Elvis died. And I remember she bought me an Elvis album. I think it was, can't remember what Elvis album it was. If I remember, I'll put it in the thing. But it was an Elvis album. And I think it was Moody Blue. It was Moody Blue. It was the album. I used to have that album. It was pressed in blue vinyl. I don't have it anymore. I wish I did. One of these days I'm going to get it again because it was one of my memories from Elvis. But and I took this album home and put it on the record player, and it started off with Destroyer. Started off with the sound like they're doing the car and. You know, and then they get in the car and everything.
That must have been pretty convincing, because I imagine that's a way that a comic would start off, you know, kind of with some backstory.
Right, and I remember thinking, where's the comic book? Because there was nothing in the album. There wasn't a comic in there. And then the song started, and it played through a little while before I was like, this isn't a comic. And like I said, everybody knows my love for Detroit Rock City, and I think that's where my love for Detroit Rock City comes from, because it was the very first Kiss song that I ever heard, and it blew me away. And so at that point, at 7 years old, in August of 1977, I had just turned 8. Actually, I turned 8 in April, so I was 8 years old, and I'm 48 now. So I've been Kiss fan for almost 40 years, or over 40 years. At that point, I was a Kiss fan, and I have fallen in and out of love with Kiss. I've had a love-hate relationship with them. I'm not always proud of what they do. I'm not always proud of who they are. But I have always stood for them, you know, and I've always so they're my number 2 band. Long and short of it, that's why Kiss is my number 2 band.
Yeah, I'm glad that you gave a history rather than listing reasons, because we're probably going to cover every single one of those over the course of this. So
right. So dun 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 dun. Drum
number
roll.
one.
Number 1 band for you.
Don't even need to look at my notes for this one. I've listened to this band for a long time. Very long time. Longer than I can remember. In fact, my number 1 band is also probably a band you've never heard of. I know you've heard of them. That band is Pillar.
We live our lives for the love of the game, and we will rise. This is our time. So let us.
I wanted to try and let you guess, but I forgot to let you do it because I was so excited to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, I was sitting here going, when you brought up Disciple, I'm like, how's Pillar not in his top 7?
Yeah, Pillar is my favorite band of all time.
Another Christian band.
Another Christian band, but another rock band.
Oh,
They
kick butt. They kick butt with the best of them.
They are fantastic. I love them. They.
You want to talk about a drummer?
You want to talk about a drummer?
Oh my God,
Lester.
Lester makes me want to quit playing drums. I hear Lester play on a song and he does something, and I'm just like, I just want to go, burn my sticks. I'm done. I'm not a drummer compared to that. I'm not a drummer. I'm a monkey beating on some wood, whatever.
He really is. They're all really fantastic. Mm-hmm. I've listened to every single one of their albums to front and back, even the ones that they put out as EPs back in their old days. That is very hard to find. Original Superman, you can't find that one anywhere. And I love almost every single one of their albums front to back. There's only a handful of Pillar songs that I don't like. It would be hard for me to pick one to recommend, but if I had to pick one that embodied what I think of when I hear Pillar, is one of, not the first Pillar song I heard, but this is the one that got me hooked for probably life, and that is For the Love of the Game. Mm-hmm. And it's a great, great, high energy, punchy, everything is just right about it song. So if you do one thing, if you listen to one song that I suggest today, make it that song. Because
Love of the Game is a good song.
I could gush about Pillar all day. Sadly, I never got the chance to see Pillar live. They've stopped touring because most of them are either devoted husbands and raising children, or they're off touring with other bands. I know that Noah, their lead guitarist, is currently touring with what's his name? Some country artist. And Lester actually also the drummer regularly tours with country artists as well. That's how they make their living. I think their singer Rob, he does something different. He doesn't make a living. And Ben, their bassist, I think he is a session bassist, and that's what he does for a living. But they all live in completely different places. So in 2014, they came together, did a 2014, they came together, did a crowdfunded Kickstarter album. They recorded it. I was so excited. I supported the album, and it was so good. And it was nice and refreshing after their last studio album with their contract. It was probably my least favorite of all their albums, which is not to say that I don't like it. Mm-hmm. It's probably my least favorite because they really had gotten away from who they were. And when they released it, One Love Revolution, sorry, they got right, but kind of like Disciple did. They finished out their contract. They kind of lost sight of who they were, and they went to the fans and they were like, "Hey, we know that you miss how we were. We want another opportunity to make it right." And the fans were like, "Throw your money. Yes, let's do it." And,
take my money.
And Disciple and Pillar, even with they sound like professionally recorded albums because, Disciples was, but Noah has a fantastic ear. Lester has a fantastic ear. They mixed and produced both the album. Mm-hmm. I'll stop. I could talk all day about Pillar, but yes, the number one band for me all time. I listen to them till I'm dead. Pillar.
Okay, so my number one. I'll give you the chance to guess.
I know what it is because it's the only band that you would be silly enough to tattoo on yourself.
Yeah, I've got a tattoo here, and I'm not going to show all of it yet because I'm not done with it yet. But my number one favorite band that I love them enough to put them on permanently on my body is none other than New York's own Typo Negative. I discovered Typo Negative late. I never got to see Typo Negative. Never got to see them live. Never got to meet them. Peter Steele passed away several years ago. It's coming up on his anniversary. Their front man, Peter Steele, he died on my birthday, which I'm not proud of. But Typo Negative is, if you've not ever heard of them, they're a industrial goth band that writes some of the most amazing music that I've ever heard. And Typo Negative does not have a song that I don't like. And I don't want to give away too much because I'm going to review all the Typo Negative catalog eventually. They don't have a very big catalog, 5 or 6 albums maybe. But they have albums that are front to back that I can listen to front to back. And they're one of the bands that the reason why I put them as my number one band is because they're the only band that I can say for however many days now that I couldn't even count that I have listened to them every single day. Every day. I do not go a day without listening to Typo Negative in some shape and form. Either, driving down the road or in the background at work. Typo Negative is a band that is the only band that pushes Kiss out of the top spot. And like I said, I didn't discover Typo Negative until the Bloody Kisses album. And I discovered them through a friend of mine, Chris, who passed away, several years ago. He introduced me to Typo Negative. And he had the Bloody Kisses album, but he got me started on that. But then we went back and listened to the earlier. He got me on the Origin of the Feces, and God, I'm drawing a blank right now, believe it or not. The Origin of the Feces and the other first album.
You're number one. Can't even remember the album names.
Well, you get in front of a camera and you forget stuff, and I'll remember as soon as the camera goes off. And people are like, you can't remember the names of the albums. You get in front of a camera and remember the names of the albums.
Yeah.
All I know is that without getting, and Typo Negative to me is like pillar to him. They, without sounding too weird, they go in my ears and they go down into my soul. And they touch a part of me that no other band does, not even Kiss. Kiss does not have very many songs. Kiss has songs that when I hear them, they get my blood pumping, they make me smile, I have a good time, I'm going down the road or listening to them and I'm rocking. But Typo Negative has songs that goes in my ears and goes down inside of me and becomes a part of me because I can idealize with the pain and the suffering and the depression and all the stuff that Peter was a master at writing songs about, and he wrote about it in such a beautiful way. And all the guys in that band are just so talented. And you talk about layers and layers and layers of production.
Yeah.
I mean, if
Meticulous.
the one song, listen to, it's off of their October Rust album, which is a masterpiece. Not a bad song on it. Love You to Death. Or listen to In Praise of Bacchus. Or listen to...
You're just going to name the whole album now.
Right, I'll just name the whole album. It is one of my desert island albums. Typo Negative actually has a couple. I won't say all of them because, Desert Island, if I'm only getting 10, Typo Negative is not going to be 5 or 6 of them. But because I'm going to want some variety. But Typo Negative would be more than one album, and probably the only band that would be more than one album. Maybe Kiss might have a couple albums, but so yeah, my number one favorite band of all time, Typo Negative.
All right, and that's our top favorite.
That's our top 7 favorite bands, and so we want to know what you think.
Do you want to give a recap?
Sure. Yeah, I'll have to get my glasses out and read mine. So. Mine from 7 to 1 is my number 7 band is Creed. My number 6 band is Foo Fighters. Number 5 is Motley Crue. Number 4 is Guns N' Roses. Number 3 is Alice in Chains. Number 2 is Kiss. And number 1 is Typo Negative.
And for me, number 7 is Periphery. Number 6 is Kiss. Number 5 is Disciple. Number 4 is Tosca. Number 3 is Alice in Chains. Number 2 is Parkway Drive. And number 1 is Pillar.
So we hope you enjoyed the list. We hope, and we want to know, comment down in the comment section. Let us know what your favorite bands are, top 7. Go ahead and throw a top 7 favorite bands down there. Because, some of these bands he's talked about that I've not heard, I'll go look up. I like watching other people when they review other albums and stuff I've not heard. And I'll go listen to it and I'll be like, oh, I like this. Now I got a new band I can listen to. Or, oh, that's not really my cup of tea, but at least I can say that I gave it a try. So, but yeah, so comment down in there what you like, what you don't like. What do you think about our list? What do you think about the bands that we put on our list? Do you love them? Do you hate them? Do you have an opinion of them?
Do you even know who they are?
Do you know who they are? And as always, be sure to subscribe so you get more of these videos. Like it, share us everywhere. Share us.
Send the pigeons.
Send them to the pigeons. And but we'll go ahead and close this. I'm Brant.
I'm Steven.
And we'll see you again next time.